Dark Souls. Yeah, even saying the name feels like a meme at this point. It's been beaten into the ground that any new game that's difficult is the Dark Souls of...
This is one of those games that I think everyone should experience at some point, even if it's only for 30 frustrating minutes. There are two sides to this game that are polar opposites of each other. Side 1, the first half of the game is as close to perfection as you can get. The world is masterfully interconnected in ways that I've never seen before. The combat makes any regular enemy feel like a boss, and the bosses are so creatively challenging that you have to be the very best like no one ever was in order to best these difficult skill checks. The other side of the game takes everything I just said and takes a big ol' shit on it. Wide open areas that are completely devoid of anything useful, annoying enemies that are copied and pasted in clusters in front of important areas, and the bosses are now an annoying test of your patience rather than a true test of your skill. Now begins our journey into the two halves of Dark Souls. It's truly hard to describe just how magical it is the first time you discover how interconnected the world is of Dark Souls. The freedom to explore anywhere you want to is there right from the beginning, and the developers use death to guide you where to go. This game also doesn't hold your hand at the beginning. Instead, it grabs you by the wrist and throws you off a cliff. The main hub of this world is Firelink Shrine, and you are told to ring 2 bells of Lordran, and that's it. Well, okay, that's good information, I guess, but what the hell do I do now? Now, this is where traditional video game logic should take over for any smart person. First, you scan the environment and you can clearly see enemies up there, so that tells me enemies equal way forward. This is what I'm going to call the intended way forward, but since I was given so many paths to choose from, of course I'm going to choose the wrong one. So what did I do the first time I played Dark Souls? I went down to New Londo Ruins and this happened. Are you kidding me? Fuck this game. Now, I think I figured out the problem the first time. I wasn't told to get good enough, and so I just dropped the game. But with this second time, I think I was finally told enough times to get good that it finally clicked. From Firelink Shrine, you can actually go to 3 different areas, whether that's being blown up in the catacombs, dying to unkillable ghosts in New Londo Ruins, or taking the path upwards through the Undead Burg. Dark Souls actually goes pretty easy on you in this first area by introducing you to the many different signature moves that these games are known for. Dodging arrows while also fighting something head-on, ambushes around every corner, and enemies that will decimate you at your low level. I actually love this design choice because you can clearly see that this knight is guarding a treasure, but you have to make the call on if you want to sacrifice all the progress you've made up until that point. If you decide to go for it, then you get a chance to improve your skills or learn that you've already gotten a grasp on the combat style these games offer. If you decide not to go for it, you'll make a mental image of where this knight is, but that's only after you're done sweating bullets from the pain you almost endured. There's also another human character at the bottom of this spiral staircase, and for a new player, this is where the real choices have to be made. If you defeat him, you get a set of armor that can be very helpful in the early game, but if you lose, you have to go back into his arena in order to pick up your souls. That's assuming you even make it to this tower on your next trip through, and the cost of failing to make it back here is all of your souls. At the top of this tower is the boss of this area, and that's the Taurus Demon. Once you get past him, you are led right into the next area, the Undead Parish. Getting through that place is easier said than done. You'll find out quickly that you aren't going in through the front gate, so you'll find this side entrance, and exploring it fully will now grant you access to your first shortcut. To me, these are more rewarding than items, since they will alleviate some of the stress of having to retrace your steps over and over again. It truly feels like the game is giving you a helping hand for the first time, after beating the shit out of you for the past couple hours. Now, to get through this parish, you'll have to either fight or run past large groups of tough enemies, bulls that you have to defile in order to beat them, and the most annoying type of enemies to be found in this series, archers. The amount of enemies that you have to fight your way through in this section is staggering, and when you finally make it to the church, you're going to be so worried about losing your souls that you fought so hard to obtain. You are so far away from the last bonfire, and the best way to describe this panicked feeling is the ocean. If you've ever swam in it and gone a little too far out, you can feel the current starting to pull you out into the ocean. It literally feels like your heart drops out of your asshole as you quickly swim back to shore and you vow to never go near that terrifying pool of unimaginable terrors ever again. That's exactly how it feels to not know where the next bonfire is. Once you arrive at the back entrance to the church, you have two paths to choose from. Either go inside the building with tons of enemies that is hiding a giant skill check in the form of Shield Man here, or go down the long road that looks like the home of the next boss. I sprinted through that long road to ruin, and by the grace of Gwyn, I ran into the next bonfire, and what a relief that was. Now, clearing out the church is no problem, because the respawn point is so close to the entrance. Inside the church, you will find an elevator that you have no idea where it's going to take you to, but with everything in this game, you just have to move forward and be prepared for the worst. When you exit out and see the text Firelink Shrine come onto the screen, that is the moment you should realize how genius this game is. I was absolutely blown away by seeing just how interconnected the world is. 99% of the time, the games that I'm playing are just constantly pushing me forward, leaving everything I've already seen behind me in order to simulate progress. But Dark Souls made going back to the original area feel like an even greater sense of progression. This interconnected world design complements the difficulty curve so well. If you get stuck on a boss that you just can't get past, you have the option to explore wherever you want and take a break from that boss. Until you encounter an even tougher one. This is what I did when I was stuck on the Bell Gargoyle boss, which is found on the roof of the church, where ringing bells are commonplace. I was trying for so long to take this guy down, and when I finally started to feel like I had a chance...
What? You're kidding me. There's a second one? Okay, I'm done with this boss.
I was really close to giving up again at this point, because this fight felt impossible to get past. So I turned to the internet because I just didn't want to give up. I found out that I could actually summon Solaire in this fight, but I had no idea that I had to exhaust his dialogue options because again, I'm used to traditional video games with throwaway NPCs. So I backtrack, get Solaire to help me, and while doing all this, I walked past this locked door that I had forgotten about. Interacting with it this time, it actually opened because I had found the key just lying on the ground in front of the church. This was just too insane to comprehend, since I was so used to how AAA games block off random doors for no reason, that I truly wasn't expecting this one to open up at all. I now had a whole new area to explore, and that nervous excitement of creeping through an unbeknown area, not knowing what's gonna happen next returned. Until I met this asshole.
Fuck that. I'm going back to the gargoyles.
With Solaire by my side, I was finally able to beat those two dicks and ring the first bell. And that was the moment that I just knew I was going to finish this game.
It really does feel like the Bell Gargoyles are the first true checkpoint for anyone that gives Dark Souls a serious shot. I was this close to giving up, but I'm so glad I stuck with it. Until I realized I had to fight the camper dickhead now.
Seriously, who thought this was a good idea to put an incredibly fast and mobile boss in a tiny room with two dogs you have to fight as well? The only strategy that works is to run up the stairs and pray you can get past the dogs, but that doesn't work half the time. You have to take them out first in order to only focus on the Capra Demon. This really is one of the worst boss fights in the game, and it didn't even feel satisfying delivering the killing blow.
Yes! Good! Now stay dead!
Now that that's taken care of, we can go down to the depths, but I can skip that area, and now we are headed straight to the place where boys become men, and that's BlightTown. I didn't think it was that special. I wasn't constantly getting knocked off the edge or dying to all the bugs poisoning me. I just took my time making my way through the different levels and got to the bottom of the swamp with only 2 deaths. The boss fight of this area is Quelaag, but after seeing those giants that hurl rocks at you, I went up the elevator instead to get away from them. This is where I found the key to the exit out of here, and now I'm back in New Londo Ruins.
Wait, isn't Firelink Shrine right above me?
Okay, now this is where I have no idea if I missed something, so I went back down to BlightTown because I remembered the second bell was in the depths. I faced my fears and just ran past the giants, and I am greeted with a sight to behold.
Yep, this is my favorite boss fight in the game.
Once you beat her and ring the second bell, you get a cutscene that shows a mysterious gate opening up, and this illustrates another point of the genius level design. You know exactly where that gate is without the game putting an arrow above you, pointing you in the right direction. The bonfire that is located in the Undead Parish shows you that closed gate every time you went to it. They put an important character, being the blacksmith, in the basement of this place so that you have to keep coming back in order to upgrade your weapons. Without you even knowing it, it was also burning the image of that gate into your subconscious for this exact moment. That cutscene of the giant gate opening gave me a feeling that I hadn't felt up until this point, and that's a sense of direction. I felt like I was just wandering around and discovering things kind of on accident, but to finally have a clear path of progression in front of me was extremely satisfying. The game then tests your knowledge by making you have to remember how to get to this gate that is nearly halfway across the map. You are here, so you have to go up through the tunnel leaving BlightTown that leads you into the Valley of Drakes, go through the door that leads to New Londo Ruins, head up from there to Firelink Shrine, and then take the elevator to get to the Undead Parish. I can still visualize that path in my head months after beating the game, and if that isn't a testament to just how amazing the level design is, then I don't know what else could be. You arrive at the giant gate, and this next path shifts the game from an open world design to a linear level design for the next two areas. This isn't a bad thing though, because these next two areas work better as linear levels, and they are also two of my favorites. Now it's finally time to enter Sen's Fortress. I love Sen's Fortress, and I don't know if that's a popular opinion or not, but let me explain why. These narrow pathways, where you have to dodge the guillotines, were a great change of pace with the environmental hazards, because you now have to worry about both the enemies and the levels themselves. You dodge these while also having a serpent that throws lightning at you, with another one fighting you head on. This would be absolute bullshit design, but they make the first set of guillotines very easy to dodge, and you're given enough time to run under a bridge that gives you safety from the lightning. You are gifted the opportunity to learn the serpent's attack patterns while in the comfort of a somewhat safe place to do it under. This whole area has stuff like this, with the serpent getting steamrolled by a boulder showing you the danger that lies ahead. There's also a new area that opens up when you finally get to the top and change the direction in which the boulders fire out. And the developers even made the chest into an enemy that want to eat you. I loved this fake out after I killed it because it gave me a new main weapon, the lightning spear.
I really like the extended reach from this weapon, and it just felt natural holding a giant rod in my hands.
Literally, every room inside Sen's Funhouse has something that is trying to kill you in a creative way. Once you get past all the boulders and Donkey Kong throwing barrels at you, you fight the Iron Golem, and I had no trouble with this guy. I even glitched him into repeating his tipping animation, so it was an easy win. With him out of the way, you get transported to my favorite area, and one of the most memorable places in all of gaming, Anor Londo. The cutscene that plays as you're being carried into Anor Londo truly adds to the brilliance of this area. There is no turning back, so all you can do is proceed cautiously until you find a way out. This was one of the first places where I had a "you've got to be shitting me" moment. When I saw that bell gargoyle barreling straight for me, realizing I had to fight this thing without the help of Solaire, I thought I was done for. With my first strike though, I hit the tail and it completely obliterated and gave me its weapon to use.
Seriously, this game finds a new way of amazing me at every corner.
Once it was finally defeated, I had absolutely no idea where to go next. There's an end of a bridge, and you can see the platform you need to get to, but there's no switch or anything. I passed the way forward at least 3 times before I discovered I had to run up these pillars in order to get into the church. This is just one of the many reasons why the first part of this area is so brilliant. The game is constantly doing something completely different than the last area. But this can also be a downside later on when you have to run past these archers.
You've got to be kidding me!
In order to advance, you have to run across this tightrope of a bridge and get past these 2 archers, and that is way easier said than done. This was the first instance where my blood started to boil because it takes so long to get back to that spot, just to be knocked off again. And of course, there's a bonfire right after you get past these guys. This is the worst part of Anor Londo, since it's so easy to get knocked off without really doing anything wrong. It's a small ledge that is made to knock you off with 1 arrow, so good thing there are 2 archers you have to deal with. With them finally out of the way, the next major thing I had to conquer was Ornstein and Smo. I still can't tell if these guys were harder than the final boss of Sekiro, which is the hardest boss I've ever fought before them. These 2 are no joke, and I didn't summon anyone to help me out with them because I didn't want to run out of humanity since I was just constantly dying. it never felt like the next run was going to be the one where I knew I was going to beat them. So I just threw myself at them over and over. The footage I'm showing right now is from my second playthrough, and that's only because I got the greatest partner of all time to fight alongside me.
I am Lord Farquaad.
Throughout this entire area, Anor Londo feels like it was built exclusively for these two, with the statues they have at the beginning and the giants that are protecting them. These two are portrayed like you're about to fight two gods, and this fight truly felt like you were trying to slay a god, because all I did was learn how to die for 4 hours straight. It literally took me 4 hours of bashing my head against the brick wall that was ONS, and I became numb about halfway through. I found the meaning of the word patience by having to wait for the perfect moment just to get a single hit in. These broken pillars are the only thing that's going to save you in this fight, and you have to use them for cover from Ornstein's relentless charge attack, while at the same time trying to figure out how close Smo is to bringing his hammer down on your blind spot. My asshole was clenched during my final bout with level 2 Smo because he came down on me with this thunder fart, and I thought this was the end for me. But by some miracle, I was spared, and it gave me the opening I needed to deliver the final 2 blows. I'll be honest, I didn't feel anything when I beat these two. I was empty from all my prior attempts, and since it was 2 a.m., I could finally go to bed. Seeing Guinevere in the next room, though, was strangely comforting because I just had a feeling they weren't going to throw another boss at me right after the toughest fight in the game. She bestows upon you the Lord Vessel, as well as the greatest view this game has to offer, and we now begin the second half of Dark Souls.
I'll be honest, if the game ended with ONS being the final boss and everything I'm about to talk about was just cut from the game, I would consider Dark Souls to be perfect.
The interconnected world of Dark Souls is the best level design I've ever experienced, and the last 2 areas are a linear fight to the finish, with Anor Londo being one of the most jaw-dropping spectacles in all of gaming. With all that said though, we have to get into the parts of this game that bring it down off that perfect pedestal. For the second half of the game, instead of making a new part of the world that is interconnected as beautifully as the first half was, you are sent to the corners of the map to track down 4 bosses. Each one of these bosses is found in a new area that you may or may not have explored yet, but personally, I think each one of these areas is worse than the public perception that BlightTown has. Well, except for the Duke's Archive, but we'll get to that next. BlightTown had some thought put into the verticality of its area, as you are truly descending down into the poisonous swamp. Lost Izalith, Tomb of the Giants, and the Demon Ruins are the worst areas in this game by far. And when I say worst areas, I know that some people watching this are not going to agree with me, but this is how I judge them. When I'm playing a Souls game, I'm playing it for the challenge the combat has to offer. The dance of finding the right moments to attack, dodge, and defend is unmatched compared to every other game for me. So when places are introduced that make that dance a chaotic and frustrating experience, I'm no longer having fun with this game. I understand these games have a deep narrative that is only revealed to the players that are deeply looking for it, but I'm just not one of those players. Very rarely will I play a game to experience a story. I'm usually focusing on how much fun I'm having with the combat. Dark Souls was one of the first games that helped me appreciate the art of level design, and that just made the second half of the game that much worse. Let's begin the second half back where we started, Firelink Shrine. With the Lord Vessel in hand, you can finally fast travel between bonfires and warp out of Anor Londo to start traversing the rest of this world. I warped back to Firelink Shrine, and it was a little different. You meet this creature called Framped, and he transports you below ground to place the Lord Vessel at an altar. Upon placing it, you get a cutscene showing 3 magical doors disappearing, but you might not know where they are. This was my first inclination that the back half of Dark Souls wasn't going to be as good as the first. With the Gate to Sen's Funhouse opening, you've been staring at it for half the game, wondering what could be behind it, and when it finally opens, you know precisely where to go. With 3 magical gates disappearing, if you haven't been to these exact places before this, you have absolutely no idea where to go. Framp tells you the names of the 4 lords you have to defeat, and then you are thrown back into this world to go figure out everything yourself. Without immediately looking it up, I did know where one of these gates was, and that's because I explored Anor Londo thoroughly. So that's where I went next, and goddamn is the Duke's Archive annoying. To start off, you have to fight 2 of the boars covered in armor that you've already fought in the Undead Parish, but now it's in a narrow corridor with nowhere to run. These things are so annoying because they take so many hits to take down, but I know I'm probably not doing it in the most efficient way in this footage, but that's all I had. It's so hard finding the right time to heal against these creatures because it seems like every time you think you're safe, think again. If those weren't a sign of how annoying this area was going to be, these archers and spellcasters make that abundantly clear. You remember earlier in the video when I talked about how the most annoying enemies in this game are the archers? Well, this is where the problem comes to a head. It's not enough that the first room you break into has an archer firing at you while you deal with these little crystal shits. So I go up to him to teach him a lesson, and he wasn't even the real challenge. There's a spellcaster who is in the middle of the library, and you have to time it just right in order to take him down. Now, all you have to worry about is the multiple archers that are now aiming right for you. Once you finally get past them all, you face the boss, but you can't even touch him here. All you could do was die, and that was really frustrating. Until I revived in a completely different area. I thought I was doing something wrong, but then once I saw that I was in a jail cell, it dawned on me that that was probably supposed to happen. This area is actually one of my favorites from the entire game, since it actually pulls off the spectacle it was going for. Right away, you see a giant gate get lifted, and octopus-like creatures come pouring out after a jukebox starts playing. Once you leave your cell, you are greeted by the serpents from Sen's funhouse, but they don't want to even fight you. They run right past you and go up a ladder because they are so terrified of the creatures that they just released. I never found these squids to be much of a challenge, since you can take them down fairly quickly. The real challenge starts with this platform. You get rushed by 3 of the serpents, and this is where I died most of the time, but I quickly took care of them on my 3rd try. You get a key for the exit as your reward, but getting out is easier said than done.
Are you kidding me? I just want to leave.
I really shouldn't have wanted to leave so badly, because this is where the area truly becomes the worst version of itself. There are spellcasters placed on every side of the library now, and you are constantly having to dodge oncoming fire that you can't even see coming most of the time. Not to mention that anytime you try and go up and smack them, they can just teleport away from you. And you still have to worry about the damn archers as well. I just didn't find anything fun about having to constantly dodge oncoming projectiles while having to fight my way through enemies that are blocking the way forward. Once you deal with all these assholes, you are now onto your way to the Crystal Caves. It's an interesting gimmick area with giant enemy crystals and invisible bridges, and I just really didn't have much to say that was negative about this area. There are also giant crabs that are guarding the entrance to the boss fight. These can be pretty hard to take down when you're facing them for the first time, so why not throw 6 of them at you all at once? After I died the first time, I just ran past them all. Apparently I wasn't fast enough though, because 2 of them followed me into the arena where I fought the first of the 4 lords, Seath The Scaleless. This dude's a pushover. All you do is attack his side tentacles while he tries to fire crystals at you that miss half the time. I even had to deal with the 2 extra crabs, and he still went down without much of a fight. On both playthroughs, I beat this guy on my first try, because all you have to do is heal once he knocks you up with his crystal attack. Good thing he gives you plenty of time to do that. You know what? Now I can see why Seath betrayed his own kind, because he knew he was the weakest one of them all. Okay, that's it for Seath and the Duke's Archive. The next area we are tackling is New Londo Ruins. I don't know if I'm just stupid or what, but I don't know how anyone could get through this section without a guide telling you what to do. This entire area is filled with ghosts that are untouchable unless you pop a transient curse, which grants you the ability to hurt them. I don't really have much to say about this area because the first half has one enemy type, that being the ghosts. They gang up on you very quickly in these sections, but they're easy to handle if you back away and make some space between you and them. The whole point of this area is to drain the water, which reveals a new path forward that leads to the lord of this area. The basement does have some enemy variety in it, with these skeleton knights that hit surprisingly hard. They give you a fair challenge and prepare you for the punishment that you're about to face with the 4 kings. Once I finally got to the well where you fight the 4 kings, I jumped in and said,
What the fuck was that?
Upon the guidance from the amazing internet, I realized that I must obtain an item first to be able to traverse the shit abyss. But in order to obtain this item, I would have to break my heart by having to defeat the Great Wolf Sif. there's really nothing interesting about the lead up to this fight, so I'm going to just talk about him briefly. The battle is not a hard one to win, and that's on purpose. You are fighting a giant beautiful beast that is just being a loyal good boy and protecting his master Artorias. I didn't want to hurt this poor pup, and when it got down to low health, I was hoping that there was a way to spare the doggy, but I should have put him out of his misery as quickly as possible. With about one sliver of health left, Sif starts to limp with his front paw and still tries to swing at you, even through to the bitter end. But he can't keep his balance and ends up falling over, and I honestly felt a tear come to my eye at this very moment. I can't handle media that involves either dogs dying or getting hurt because I love these loyal creatures with all my heart. So I defeated Sif quickly and obtained the ring to traverse the abyss, and now it's time for the Four Kings. This is a pure endurance fight that I could not best for the life of me. I would always get grabbed and then another one would appear and completely overwhelm me until I died. I just had to leave and go complete all the side areas before I came back to this fight because I kept dying in the most annoying ways. I couldn't even make it down the stairs to the boss room one time. The only way I could beat this fight was by putting on the heaviest armor I had while just constantly attacking and healing. It didn't feel like I learned the boss's patterns and slowly got better with each attempt. No, I just got lucky one time and beat it out of pure will. I've heard this is the hardest boss fight in New Game Plus, and there is no way I'm taking it down another time. With the conclusion to New Londo Ruins, we are left with the last two areas, Lost Izalith and Tomb of the Giants. I personally don't know which one is worse, but I know the online consensus is that Lost Izalith and the Lord that inhabits it, Bed of Chaos, is the worst one of these two, so I'm gonna just start with that one first. Before we get to that nightmare though, we have to go through the Demon Ruins. And this is really where we start to see enemies being copied and pasted in certain areas. These many tourist demons are all blocking a very important item, but man, it really doesn't look aesthetically pleasing. While trying to run past them though, I had this happen to me. Literally, all but one fell off the edge and died, giving me a clear shot to the item and some amazing footage. They stayed dead too, and while I didn't get the souls for killing them, I got a clear shot at the item instead. The rest of this area isn't that interesting, so here are the cliff notes. The Capper Demon is also copied and pasted right after the Taurus Demon section, but you can easily draw them out one at a time. These enemies are actually fun to fight when you aren't in a tiny room while also having to deal with two dogs. We've also got fire-breathing nutsacks, giant centipedes, and a reskin of the Asylum Demon, but this time he's on fire. Woo! Then right after the reskin boss, you have to fight a Centipede Demon, and I had to add this into my voiceover because I totally forgot about this boss until I started going through my footage. That's how forgettable this fight is, but you get the orange charred ring, which reduces lava damage, and you are going to need that in order to traverse Lost Izalith. The general consensus I read online was that this area was unfinished, and I wanted to see if I could find the source for that argument. There's no direct quote from the game's director, Hidetaki Miyazaki, saying that Lost Izalith was unfinished. He does talk about the design of the Bed of Chaos fight in an interview for the Dark Souls Design Works book. A complete translation was posted on GiantBomb.com, which I'll link down below, where he says that he couldn't get a mental image for what he wanted this fight to look like. So they ended up with the Bed of Chaos, since deadlines were rapidly approaching and they just had to put something in there. So from all my digging, I found nothing of Miyazaki admitting to Lost Izalith being unfinished, just that he was unhappy with the Bed of Chaos boss fight. And also during an interview with Game Informer, he says that Lost Izalith is his least favorite zone in the series, and that it was a learning experience for everyone. Okay, now let's finally dive into that lava. You obtain the ring that allows you to run through lava, and the place is filled to the brim with giant dinosaurs that discourage you from going near them. You are given a very clear path forward, and it seems like this entire area was designed in a way to get the player through it as quickly as possible. There are items at the edges of the map, but trying to obtain them is not worth the risk. There's a giant branch that blocks you from even getting to the item, and then the dinosaurs are there to help crush that foolish ambition. This entire area is counterintuitive to every aspect the game has taught you so far.
In a game that rewards you for exploration, there's an entire area dedicated to stopping that. And that's just the first half of it.
The second half is a confusing maze of crumbled ruins that don't make any sense on why they are set up the way they are. And again, Exploration is discouraged because the items that entice you are almost unattainable. Just run past everything to get to the boss arena. And now it's finally time to talk about the Bed of Chaos.
This boss sucks ass, but it's the best fight out of the four lords.
Okay, hear me out. The four lords are either too easy, insanely frustrating, or just plain dumb. The developers knew how shit this boss was, so it actually saves your progress from your last go. If you destroy one of his balls and then die, you don't have to do that part over again. So realistically, you only have to spend 3 attempts taking this guy down. And the best part of this boss is having to utilize a mechanic that you haven't had to use up until this point. Jumping. Yeah, the floor collapsing is horseshit, and getting knocked down is such ass. But as long as you make progress each attempt, this fight is an easy win. The four lords are all turds, but the Bed of Chaos stinks the least. Now that we never have to go to Lost Izalith again, there's only one area left, and I saved the worst for last. Tomb of the Giants. Once I finally experienced this area, I wish I would have just turned off the console instead. So what makes this area the worst one Dark Souls has to offer? Let's start with total darkness. All that we have to guide ourselves with are these little lighted gems that help you out in the beginning. There are giant skeletons that gang up on you with the ability to decimate your health bar. And while we're at it, let's just sprinkle in some skeletons that are also shooting arrows at you all at the same time. Every time you die at the beginning, you have to run past the most bullshit part of this game with these wheeled skeleton fucks. I know I skipped the entire catacombs area because it is forgettable and I just wanted to be done with this game by this point. This area is just absolutely the worst because you're having to fight these giant skeletons while constantly being afraid of getting knocked off the edge of the cliffside. These enemies would be hard to kill in an open area, let alone on a ledge in pitch darkness. Also, fuck patches. I'm just happy I can kill him in almost every game. After getting kicked on the ledge though, you find a lantern that finally allows you to illuminate the absolute worst enemy in the game. These giant skeleton dogs hit hard, fast, and sporadically, with barely giving you any time to breathe. If you play aggressively, your attacks don't interrupt his wind-up animations, so it's a losing battle going for it at this angle. You're basically forced to play defensively, but even that doesn't feel like the optimal strategy, because you don't even have time to heal before taking damage again. So what's the only strategy that's gonna work in this area? Oh yeah, run like hell. That's my greatest advice for this game. If something or some area is aggravating you to the point of rage quitting, just run right past everything, straight to the boss. Speaking of, the boss for this area is Gravelord Nito, and he was actually the one I was looking forward to the most because of his cool design. Unfortunately, that's the only good thing about him. You literally enter the arena by dropping down a ledge so high that it takes down half your health. The devs knew that this boss was a pushover, so they had to make everything surrounding Nito be the true test of your patience in this arena. You can't go to the back or else you'll summon 2 giant skeletons, which makes this fight pretty much unwinnable. So stay up front and just keep swinging away at him while ignoring the 3 skeletons he summons to fight alongside him. This can be easier said than done though, because if you're too slow and he's able to grab you, at least half your health is gone after that. So now the skeletons become a problem, but I can dodge them, and what the fuck is that? Nito snaps directly to where you are as if you're right in front of him. God damn it, this fight sucks. It's not hard if you can get behind him and just keep swinging away, and then run when he curls up into a ball to do an AoE attack. Run back up, repeat the process, and then he's dead. Good. Now I'll never have to play this horrible area again. With those last 4 areas done, I just want to briefly touch on the DLC and the killing of the First Flame. Artorias is probably the best fight in Dark Souls, and wasn't topped until Ishin the Sword Saint in Sekiro. I don't have much to add to the conversation in this boss fight because so many people have already described it better than I could. But it is a true test of all the combat abilities you have at your disposal and one of the best boss fights in all of gaming. Speaking of the final boss fight, Gwyn is good as well, and I actually had to learn how to parry in order to beat him. I hadn't parried a single time in this game, so I decided the best time to learn was on the final boss. Finally, after besting him and showing him who the real boss is, I decided to leave and let the world fall into darkness, because I was going to anyway. And that's it. That's everything I want to talk about in Dark Souls 1, and why I think parts of this game are truly a masterpiece. But let's just recap real quick. The 4 lords are all horrible boss fights, and their areas are the worst part of playing the game. I strongly believe that by cutting these last boss fights and some of the final areas entirely, the only thing you lose is the most frustrating aspects of one of the best games ever made. Seath is a pushover, Nito is annoying as hell, the Four Kings are almost brokenly impossible to beat, and Bed of Chaos is beyond annoying. But I don't think it's as bad as everyone makes it out to be. So what are we left with after cutting all this content? An interconnected world that's tremendously fun to explore, the best DLC area I've ever played that could still be in the game because of its spot next to the Hydra, and you could still fight Gwyn at the end underneath Firelink Shrine. The later areas aren't filled with interesting enemies or challenging puzzles to overcome, but feel more like a last-minute addition before a deadline. Copied and pasted enemies in large groups to try and slow you down, 4 boss fights that are touted as being these great unstoppable lords that just end up being too forgettable or frustrating, and large open areas that are meant to be sprinted through rather than enjoyed at every corner. After spending 20 or so hours exploring the best interconnected level design I've ever experienced, you are forced to slog through linear areas that are tucked away in the corners of this map. These two halves of the game just feel like polar opposites, and the back half has to bring down the score of this game because of how damn tedious it is. Hell, you could even cut out Gwyn's fight. Think about it, Gwyn is going to die anyway, and even if you link the fire, the flame is going to burn out eventually. Why not enjoy the rest of your time you have with a beautiful woman that will never leave your side? Dark Souls 1 is a game that I'm so glad I gave a second chance to, because it resulted in one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had. And it also contributed to some of the worst. This game is the definition of a goddamn masterpiece. Only if it ends after beating Ornstein and Smo. I know not everyone is going to agree with me with that last sentence, but I will always stand by that statement.
For anyone still listening, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. And I really want to make it a habit of making these longer form videos like this. So if you could share it with someone, post it on Reddit, post it on Twitter, whatever, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for your time and have a great rest of your day.